used to work in Blanks, which was another music shop down the road. In the early 2000s, there was a big, after George Harrison died, there was in his concert they used all these ukuleles, and Joe Brown and Paul McCartney, and suddenly people wanted to buy ukuleles. And there was one company who made inexpensive ukuleles called Mahalo, and they were very cheap and basic, and these were the only ukuleles which were available for sale at the time, and the only book for teaching ukulele was the George Formby book. But there was no correlation between the book and the instruments, because the instruments were so basic and cheap, and the book was so complicated, and how to it was an advanced book of playing George Formby music, which wasn't so simple to play, although it sounds quite simple, and he was actually a very good player. So that's how I kind of like came across the ukulele first, and we sold them for a few years, and suddenly at some point there was a much bigger demand, and people were a lot more interested, and there's lots of music. I mean, today there's so much music and so many instruments to choose from, But this one is quite special. I mean, we collect a few ukuleles, and we have interesting ones like an old Gibson and from the 30s, and an old Martin, which were made in America. But this one is a little bit more special because, first of all, George Formby was the local hero before my time. Yeah, he was the biggest maybe film star in the 30s, and still until these days he influenced a lot of people, and this instrument was signed by on the hide here, was signed by him. There's like a clover, some Irish kind of like thing, and it says, don't know if you can zoom in. Don't know if you can see it. Yeah, George Formby, 1938. Which is kind of like the peak of his career, from what I understand. And also he signed on this postcard as well, so he must have signed million postcards, and you know, it was this was the only way to touch the fame, really, to get a signed postcard or a signed postcard, or there was no record to sign. You couldn't sign on a record, or you couldn't take a selfie with any celebrity. The only thing you could do is to get a signed postcard, or in this case a signed ukulele. So it's definitely not his instrument, because his instrument sold for quite a lot of money years ago, but you can definitely tell it's like a 1920s, it's called the H. Palmer Maestro banjolele, which is a louder version of a ukulele, like a wooden ukulele. And I found it by chance in an auction that doesn't exist anymore. I went to have a look at some violins, and it was just the last item in the sale, and I didn't think too much of it, because I thought it's either gonna draw a lot of attention, or maybe no one will even notice it, and I just left an absent bid of the minimum of the estimate, and I kind of like didn't think much of it. And 2 days later I realized I was the only bidder, so I got to pay for it and take it. And of course it didn't really what I had in mind is that it's a nice evidence because of the old times. And normally all instruments that come in, we tend to restore them and do them up and make them and bring them to the best they can play. But here there's a few frets missing, and it's still got gut strings made of sheep gut. And I didn't think of replacing any of them, and I just thought, yeah, we'll keep it as original as possible. It still plays. These days no one is using sheep gut strings, since the developing of the much better alternatives made of plastic. You don't have to do this really messy job. And the way it kind of like connects to Kilburn is that in the Gaumont State, in the cinema in the opening night, which was in 1938, actually George Formby was the person who was opening this magnificent. It was like the biggest. I think it was the biggest hall in Europe or in England at the time, and they chose George Formby to go on stage and play his ukulele or banjolele as an opening act, which was maybe it's not a choice of a band or an orchestra, just this funny guy getting on stage with one of these instruments. So I think that it has a nice, strong connection to the history of Kilburn, and that's why we like it, and it's part of our shop, really. Yeah, kind of like for the common people, it's got like these military things and a lot of funny songs like working class, window cleaners and all this, and how he gets in trouble, but it really through him you can kind of like understand the history of this place, because of course I wasn't born around here, and I'm in a completely different generation. But you can really pick up some of this, the vibe or the atmosphere or the sense of humor that was popular at that time. And I think every person who gets introduced to him will always find him a classic, maybe like maybe not Charlie Chaplin, but in kind of like the same. It's good enough to last for many years and still be relevant to people who not related to it in any way. And of course it brings a lot of memories for other generations who grew up watching these films in, I guess, in the 60s or something, when there was a black and white TV. But for us, it's really, that's the main connection, is the fact that it's that he played here in one of the most important events that happened on this high road ever, which was 80 years ago. I opened it with someone who's been here since the early 80s. His name was John Leslie, and he had the accordion shop here, which was also a big part of music. The accordion was an important instrument for music, especially around here. But basically, we opened it 16 years ago now. So it's been 16 years that the shop is alive and kicking, and this has been here for maybe 10, 12 years or 13 years. I don't really remember. I don't know, I might have the date. Yeah, I have the date. Yeah, we bought it in the 15th of December 2010. That's the card. That's the postcard, sorry. with the same signature, which also in his book he had a signed photograph of his. Definitely there's a lot of history around here, and a positive one. It's definitely changing, and every few years you notice that it hasn't been the same as the even when we opened the shop, the Harrods it felt very different to what it feels today, and there was a lot more live music at the time. There were when we opened the shop in 2008, there were 3 venues actually operating every night, which were it was the Powers Bar, the Luminaire, and the Good Ship. They had live music every night, three bands in each one of them at least, and a lot more acts in like the North London Tavern and the Cock Tavern and a few other places. And I think through the recession and a few of them basically, actually all of them closed for different reasons, one by one. And of course you have the Fiddler now, which is kind of like a part-time operating live music venue, but it's definitely changed. And the Gammon State is a church now. There's some activity, but it's not. And actually, I think they have like a nice gospel band and inside and everything, but it's not something that people kind of like the public goes to watch.
Yeah.
So things are changing. The music college around the corner has a lot of students that were more, let's say, 15 years ago it was more like guitar-led instrument, like mastering an instrument, either the guitar or the drums or bass and performance and everything. And today the way music goes is, at the moment, it looks like most of the students are there to learn how to make music in their bedroom. Not in a negative way. It's just you don't need the session musicians that you needed years ago, and basically people can record an amazing album, writing their own songs and create their own music and their own art in a small room once they know how to operate a computer and know how to let's say if years ago a sound engineer was an engineer in terms of the way you need to know how to operate everything, and nothing works as well as you want it to work. And today everything is much more approachable thanks to technology, and it makes people a lot more independent, and they can make their own music without going to an expensive studio and pay for musicians. And that's the way the music is going. I mean, a lot of the music is going these days, but still there's the acoustic side and the live side, which is still exciting. And even here you go to the Sir Colin Campbell pub down the road, and twice a week they'll have some Irish sessions, and every once in a while I pop in and say hello to the guys that I know there, and it's always such an amazing atmosphere, and at least that feels like it could have happened in the 1930s where George Formby was around, and it's still the same music being played, or almost the same music being played in the same manner in the same looking pub. Maybe now they serve different food rather than I don't know what they were serving, if they were serving food at the time at that pub, but now you can get some funky, I don't know, Indian or Italian food in an Irish pub, but the rest of it is actually it's the same essence of what it used to be, as much as it will allow me. just show you the construction of it here. So if we start from here, so you've got some friction pegs. So these are later ones, they're plastic, but sometimes it's some friction pegs and probably like a bone nut. I have no idea what this fingerboard is. Some kind of a very cheap wood that doesn't hold the frets very well. And of course you've got the mother of pearl or dots here. And then yeah, from the back, the maple body, maple neck, although that looks maybe like a beech or something like that. So another rod that was inserted into it, slightly more, maybe local and cheaper. And then all this nicely bent tin or whatever it is, and really passed the test of time, and not much is wrong with it. The screws are a bit rusty, but not a big deal at all. You look at some music or musicians, and they're very inspiring and they're amazing, but actually no one else plays like them, or you know, it's there was only one person like that, and that kind of like left an impact. But it's not that you'll see a lot of people who are like aspiring musicians who try. It belongs to like a place and a time, and it's not one of the, I don't know, like the Beatles that people still play, and their own music that sounds like the Beatles. You know, people don't write songs like, especially not in a kind of like a bit more mainstream. Like if you can consider him like a mainstream, now it's a small niche, but it's not like a Beatles or I don't know other Bob Dylan, or that so many years later people are still playing songs that sound like them and inspired by it. You can see the influence straight away. It's almost like it belongs to like a place and time, and today to make it maybe feels a little bit too naive to play this kind of music. Makes it a bit more unique as well. Still, he's still got an important part of shaping the kind of like the culture and music. It's definitely been played a lot and not recently. So I can tell you that I only used it a few times, and of course I didn't, because because of its history. Actually, it's more important as an object rather than like an instrument that needs to be played. So that's why I kept everything as original. Never did any changes to it, and just made sure that it stays in the exact condition I got it in. Maybe slightly better, but not dramatically better. But of course the vellum is can kind of like deteriorate, and also the strings could be on the instrument for maybe 50-60 years as well. So that's the one.